Okay, so seventh lesson of Unit 5. I mentioned before that this unit is really spread out. Even if you had no clue what was going on first semester, that's fine because really, like, you don't need it as much. You might need some things, but exponential functions is mostly like understanding the concept of it and the formula for it and how to make it. And we looked again at exponential graphs and equations. Both growth and decay we looked at today. The only thing that was different is now there's negative exponents. So we know, like, reasonably, can you have negative time? Well, maybe in the real world, like, no, you can't have negative hours, but they always define time for you in the problem. They'll always say time is weeks since school started, or something like that. If they're saying find when t is a negative number, that means it had to have been before that time frame. So that's really it. That's all you need to know. Everything else is the same. So when you are doing your practice, just keep that in mind. Today it's Unit 5, Lesson 7. Tomorrow well, it's assembly day, so classes are 10 minutes shorter. You'll have quite a bit of work to do in algebra. You'll have a quiz, a lesson, and 2 practices to do. So in math lab, that should get done. If you need more attempts, you can email me. I may or may not respond in time to give you it while you're in math lab. But, you know, I'll get it eventually, another attempt. And then what else? I also put that you all need to, in math lab, submit me 1 IXL skill at 90 or higher. So that's the only additional work. Otherwise, the rest is doing the work from algebra that you didn't get done. Yes. Okay, so if you don't need help with what I'm going over, that's fine. I just need you to be quiet. Lesson 7 is number 3 is on the screen. We have a storm that lasted several hours, damaged farmers' crops. The damaged area is given by this equation, where H is number of hours since the damaged crop area was first measured. Complete the table with no commas. And we're figuring out the acres damaged for each interval. It gives us the equation, so this is really a do I know how to use a calculator? And then it has a few more questions after that. So let's fill out the table first. I can't remember exactly, but on a lot of unit tests, there's always a question for like filling in a table. All you have to do is use the formula. So like 3,600 times 2 to the h power, and in my table, h is for hours, so I'm replacing the h each time. So for -3, I have 450, -2, 900, -1, 1,800. You might see a pattern here, but if you have it up in the calculator, might as well just let the calculator do it. 3,600 for that one. All right. Questions on the table part. Then it says, table 1, then it says what value of H corresponds to 2 hours before the area was first measured. So we're talking about hours. If we're talking about before it was measured, that number should be negative. Because it tells you in the description, time, or really H. H is for hours since the damaged crop area was first measured. So if we want before it was first measured, we need that number to be negative. And it's a -2 for hours. How much crop area had the storm damaged 4 hours it was before it was first measured? So
That's where you go to your equation. 4 hours before, what does my exponent need to be? -4, which is 225. All right, so if you just put 4, that wouldn't make any sense. We're saying that the storm got rid of all those, whatever it's called. So 225 acres because H is -4. That's how you get it completely right. T or H of 4 and H of -4 are different. They have different meanings, before and after. So questions on this one? Questions on others? Gunnar? Question from. All right. Okay. So the value of a truck in 2020 was $20,000. It decreases by 1/10 each year. We want the equation where n is number of years since 2020. So based on the description, you know you have two setups for your exponential functions. You have the one where they are telling you what you're multiplying by each time, or you could easily figure it out. And then you have one where they're telling you what it's decreasing by each time, or the growth rate. So based on the description, what setup should you use? The one where you can see the common factor, or the one where you can't? The one where you can't. Because this one tells us what we're losing. Well, losing or growing by, depending on if it's increasing or decreasing. And this one tells me what we're keeping each time. It's decreasing by 1/10. So in this, it's going to be 1 minus 1/10. And then what's my initial value? What's my A in this situation? 20,000. There's probably a few ways you could type in your answer, but I would go with the safe bet of doing the 1 minus 1/10 automatically, but we'll see what it all accepts. If it's ever actually right and it was just like a formatting thing, then I can give you the point back. But I would type it in as 20,000 parentheses 9/10, like that, to the n, because it did say n is for number of years since 2020. Use a little caret for exponent, shift 6. But good on making that. Common mistake is to just make that 1/10. But then that'd be saying it's losing 90% of its value, and it's not. It's keeping 90%. Now for this next one, use your calculator. So 20,000 times 9/10 to the -2 power, and we're rounding to the nearest dollar. I'm thinking when it says that, it wants whole number, not 2 decimal spots. So that's what I'm going to go with. Miss Medina. Okay, no problem. Bye. Alvaro, you're going home. Yes. For 7? Yeah. Okay, yes, I'll do that after this. So yeah, if it wanted you to round to 2 decimal spots, then it would say hundredth with like a TH. Since it says dollar, that's like rounding to the nearest ones place, like nearest whole number. I mean, I'll pull up the key in a second and we could be certain, but that's what I'm going with. Then when n is -4, rounding to the nearest dollar would be 30,483. And don't put commas unless it tells you to. This one specifically says not to. But yeah, use your calculator for that part. Let's make sure it accepts all the things that I'm saying. Because there's so many ways you could type this in that I don't think we could cover them all. But let's see. Wait, it says one of them's wrong. Let's see. I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong, but all right. So this one they have where they use a times, like a star for times. That's still the same thing I said. These are still the same numbers I said. So 24, 691. Yep, I did say that. Let's see. Then they have it with this times and no parentheses. Then they have it like that. So I'm gonna add in another answer that doesn't have the little star because I don't think we should put that because the parentheses already tell you to multiply. So that's what I'm going with. So I'm adding in an extra correct answer. Nothing of what I said was wrong though. Just the computer will mark it wrong unless I put it as another answer. Okay. So I'm going to save it and then it's going to rescore. So it'll probably take a while for you to see that that point is given back, but it will eventually. Any other questions? Serenity? All right, so the graph shows this exponential function. We're going to write an equation and find the value when x is -5. So for your exponential equations, what's the setup? So just like how you know linear is y equals mx plus b, you need to know that exponential is what? Good. A times b to the b. And when it's set up like this, probably use this one instead of the other one I showed you because you should be able to figure out what you need to multiply by each time. But what's going to be my initial amount? 10, it looks like. It's hard when it's not perfectly on the grid line. But your initial amount is always your y-intercept. So even if they give you some of these, it's still when time is 0. For the b, that I would recommend making a table. You only need 2 that are next to each other that you can see really easily. So I'd probably go based off of any of these 3. Because the others you have to estimate, even the y-intercept you're having to estimate. So I would focus on these ones that you don't have to estimate. So where x is -3, the y is 80. Where x is -2, the y is 40. Where x is -1, the y is 20. What would I have to multiply by each time to get the next number? What'd you say, Cameron? 2? No. If it was timesing by 2 each time, we'd expect the numbers to get bigger. So we're multiplying by 1. And if the numbers aren't that easy to work with, you just need 2 that are next to each other, take one of them and divide by the previous, and that would which then, yes, the next one would for sure be 10 then, because it's having. If you said dividing by 2, yeah, it is, but we don't care what we're dividing by in the problem, we care what we are multiplying. So then I'm going to make the exponent a t, not a t, an x, because when you look at the next question, it says the value of y when x is -5. If you use a different exponent, it'll probably mark it wrong. So when I type it in, and we'll take a look at the key to see what all it accepts. I would type it in like this. And you do need the little caret for the exponent. For the value of y when x is -5, you have two options. You can continue the pattern backwards because -5 is not that far from -3. Or you can use your calculator. And that is going to be 320. All right, so let's make sure that I wrote it in a way that it likes. There's lots of ways you could rewrite it, like you could use 0.5 and so forth. So let's see. Okay, yeah, it looks like I need to add an answer to this one. Let me make this a little smaller too. I don't like it. Okay. Okay. Let me add one more to that one where it's a 0.5. And then I'll do one more with the 0 not being there. So hold on. So if you're ever like take a quiz and it marks it wrong, but you're like so sure that it's right, you could ask and I'll take a look. Okay. Any other questions? We might have time for one more, depending on what it is. Okay. So friendly reminder, like you get what you put into this class. So if you're like